Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show, where we help you make the wisest and most profitable decisions. My name is Dr. Gleb Tsipursky. I'm the CEO of Disaster Avoidance Experts, the future of work consultancy that sponsors the Wise Decision Maker Show. And I'm joined today by Craig. Craig, can you please introduce yourself and share a little bit about what you do?
Thank you, Dr. Gleb. My name is Craig Crisler. I'm CEO and one of the founders here at SupportNinja. SupportNinja is a people services organization. I try not to tell everyone we're a BPO, but we're an outsourcing firm. Primarily, we work with innovative companies in multiple different industries, mostly scaling companies. All of the founders and myself were startup guys, and so we wanted to build a BPO that was responsive to innovative companies. And so that's where the birth of SupportNinja is. And we've been doing it currently in over 5 countries and a little over 3,600 employees worldwide.
Nice. Excellent. So tell me a little bit about what you're thinking in terms of the return to office mandates. What is your perspective on these challenges and what their impact is? They're starting to trend up. Why are we seeing this?
It's interesting for me because at Support Ninja and in my career, we're primarily a remote company. Over 60% of our teams work remotely. And so we lean into the idea that remote work's great. And so when I think about return to office mandates, there's a few things that I think why it's happening now is interesting. Because I do think the mandates are kind of coinciding with some changes in the dynamics of business right now in relationship to whether it be, what's happening in the US in relationship to
Mhm.
the DEI mandates going away and
Mhm.
people kind of responding to that, or whether it be folks just saying, hey, I want to try to optimize my labor force and make people come back in instead of working from home and using it as a potential layoff tool.
Mhm.
So I think a lot of it is coming from, what's happening in the macroeconomic environment
Okay.
and not necessarily based on what people are seeing in terms of performance and whatnot, because people have been operating this way for a while, quite a while, and successfully. So it's not like it's like this performance thing, in my opinion. It actually has to do more with kind of businesses to try to take a stand on a few different things, and as such, saying, okay, we're going to do RTO. As a side note to it, I do think, from a business perspective, for some of these folks, they have lots of big buildings that are empty.
Mhm.
And so that looks like a wasting asset on some people's minds. And so to have those big buildings you built be empty, business people tend to get a little weird about that.
Hmm. Yeah, I understand that. I've done worked with a number of companies that are hybrid and fully remote to help them figure out their practices and approaches. And what I've seen is that a number of companies that are announcing return to office, they have kind of been dragging their feet in terms of trying to adapt to working in a hybrid and remote setting. They don't haven't really put in efforts into doing training for their teams. They haven't really developed policies. And I'm wondering if they were just looking and waiting until an appropriate moment to get their people back into the office rather than a number of companies that have been choosing to figure out how to change their systems and models to work effectively in a hybrid and remote settings. What do you think about that?
I think that that's true. I do think that there's a bit of that happening in the sense of folks, some companies like us, like we adapted really well because we built the
Mm,
company based on wanting to be remote. And so we, built the tools and the ways in which we interact with our agents and all of that around that concept. And so we purposely did it that way.
mm,
Um, for those companies that don't do that, they didn't plan for it, I could definitely see how they may not at this point want to do any more investment there because they would just rather bring them in the office because they've always done it that way.
mm,
And I do think there's a little bit of, and maybe you ran into it as you were talking about, of this kind of traditional way of thinking around when it comes that, you need to be able to see people to know that they're doing work, and that kind of old school mentality around it versus realizing that, remote work in many ways is an enabling feature
mhm,
for a lot of people, especially when it comes to specifically when I think about, for example, what's happening with in the States with DEI and how
mm,
RTO is kind of playing into that. Remote work is specifically better for women, minority groups.
mhm,
Working parents is a big one. For them to be able to have the flexibility to work from home and get incredible careers by working from home. it's a big benefit in my mind. It actually opens up the labor pool pretty
Yeah,
significantly because now you can get all kinds of people instead of just having to say only people that can make the commute or only people that can drive or
sure.
don't have bus facilities or something like that. Like all of that stuff now actually restricts the type of people you can get instead of opening up the labor market to be able to find the
Mhm.
best people wherever they are, even if they are working from home.
Yeah, absolutely. And though I'm curious from what you've been seeing within your company, within Support Ninjas, how has it impacted? What benefits have you been seeing? Mood, morale, productivity, effectiveness, collaboration? Like, why are you fully remote, mostly remote? Like, tell me a little bit about your setup and what do you see as the benefits of it?
It's interesting. Our setup is one, to be clear, because we're very client centric, because it really depends on where the client requirements are. So that there's some clients, as an example, like fintech companies that we work with, most of those folks tend to be on a site, primarily
Mhm.
because of security concerns,
Yeah.
right? So because they're dealing with personal information, they're dealing with banking, it's personal. So being that we don't want to have any sort of breaches or anything like that, we have sites for
Mhm.
those specific clients. But the majority of our clients are very open to us doing it the way we're doing, which is saying, in a remote setting, we can have a wider pool of candidates that we can look for and we
Yep.
can find better people. But what we found in terms of productivity, and this is a funny story about Support Ninja, we wanted to go remote from inception. We were pushing really
Mhm.
hard, and our clients at the time were not really ready to do it. They were
Hmm.
very much pushing back against us because they were like, we're not ready. All of our teams are on site. We don't understand how to do it. And thank God for COVID. I'm probably one of the few people that said it because it basically allowed our clients to get comfortable with the idea because we took all of our clients remote within 30 days, but we had built the
Oh.
infrastructure and had everything ready to do it. And it was really great because what happened was they went remote and the work was as good as it was when they were on site. And so it proved to them that, oh wow, folks can work from home and it's just as good. It's even, sometimes even better. And that to me is kind of a testimony to the fact that, oh, this
Yes.
works, right? Because it allowed us to basically say, okay, now we can be remote. And people then got very
Mhm.
comfortable with the idea of remote work because everybody was having to work remote. And so it was good for us. And we've seen from engagement and the ways in which we work, and we do a lot around engagement when in the remote work
Mhm.
setting. It can be a hurdle for folks, but the way we've kind of created our systems, um, people get together all the time. They have like little groups that get together, even though they all work
Hmm.
remotely. There's all these ways that we facilitate ways in which they actually do see each other. It's just in a different setting, and it's actually more casual than it would be at work. And so it's in some ways, I think I am 100% a proponent. I was in a meeting with a few executives the other day, and one of them was saying, "Oh, I'm going to bring everybody back in," and I was like,
Hmm.
"Why? Don't do it." Yeah, because I fully believe that if you do it correctly and can kind of lean in like we have, it's fundamentally better.
Yeah, I think it's definitely if you know how to do it correctly and solve the challenges. So let's talk a little bit about what it sounds like you've been working on identifying and solving the challenges. Tell me a little bit more about that. What have you identified as the challenges of working in a remote setting and how have you solved those?
So one of the big challenges well, I'll start with one of the biggest challenges. One of the biggest challenges in remote work settings, it has to do with kind of how and what ways you're enabling your people to communicate effectively among and with each other.
Mhm.
Especially teams of that are working together, being able to collaborate around whether it be documents, whether it be just chat, and the ways in which they're talking to each other when they're on shift, those kinds of things. And so the way we've leaned in was we've created multiple different tools that allows us to kind of leverage in. So we
Mhm.
use tools like WorkVivo, we lean into Google Chat, we build bots around within Google Chat to create opportunities for folks to collaborate and talk to each other in real time.
Mhm.
And what that has done is it creates, an atmosphere of this is how we work at Support Ninja remotely, and it creates a camaraderie around it. And
Mhm.
and that ability for folks to be able to interact in real time all the time. And I'll give you a perfect example. Our whole leadership team, all of the executive team at Support Ninja, we're all 100% remote. We all
Mhm.
don't exist in the same place. My chief revenue officer is in New Zealand.
Mhm.
Um, But we have a chat, we talk to each other all the time, we ask questions to each other, we check in each other in the morning, see how you're doing. Did you have good, we do the coffee talk, that kind of stuff.
Nice.
But we've created this kind of culture around the technology and the tools that we use to kind of leverage remote. That's one. The other one is, how do you kind of consistently build a unified team in a remote setting when you're not all seeing each
Mhm.
other, all the time? And that's where we have, so there's a couple different tools that we use around that. One is we've worked with a company called WorkVivo, and we've worked with them for a long
Mhm.
time, and we call it the Ninja Hub. And it's almost like a social media platform for the company where we're
Okay.
broadcasting updates. We're doing various scavenger hunts and games
Mhm.
and things like that. And people are posting pictures of their pets, and people are conversing within this social media hub. And the Ninja Hub that allows them to kind of create this space where we're not only broadcasting very pertinent business information, but also
Mhm.
to a location where people are logging into every day and seeing like, oh, what's happening in the world, and where how are my people in the US doing compared to the people in the Philippines. And I always give the best examples that I give around that is that for example, here in the US we had some flooding recently. and
Yeah.
and so we were posting, say, hey, we're thinking of all the folks in this area, hope you guys are doing
Mhm.
okay, let us know if you need anything. And around the world, people are commenting saying, "I hope everything's okay over there. Yeah, stay safe, Steve." Things like that. And this is a global company, but we're able to do it, but like as if they have, they're all, kind of navigating it together. And
Mhm.
and those kinds of tooling, I think, is really, really important. Um, I will say one thing that's important to me and what we do is that you have to lean into in the remote setting is transparency,
Mm.
whether it be in leadership or communication, and making sure you're giving people clear updates around what's happening within the organization. And one of the things that I do, and we've done it probably for the last 6 years, is we do the Not So Friday update. And so Not So Friday update's a video show that I do every week, where I invite guests. And we broadcast it to the whole company, and we talk about what's happening in the company, how are things going, is there any sort of special announcements. I bring in special guests or
Mhm.
particular rock stars of the week, and interview them on it and talk about what they're doing. We do a Ninja's Got Talent where we do a singing program where they come on and the people sing, and we do this because it creates not only, again, that kind of we're all one company, even though we're spread all over the world.
Mhm.
But it consistently kind of has this thing of, we have this, we're talking to you every week and we're telling you about what's
Yeah.
happening with us. And that level of transparency creates great opportunities in a remote setting to break down the distance between us.
That's really valuable lessons. Thank you. Now, as we're wrapping up, what do you think will be the future of remote work going forward?
It's interesting. I think the RTOs and the return to office mandates and all that stuff, I actually think this is just a bump in the road for remote
Mm.
work. I actually think more and more people, and you'll see it happening more and more, will continue to lean in. I think,
Mhm.
as we are coming out of COVID, there has been a spike in remote work. And I think
Yeah.
there will be this kind of, we want you back, but then I think more
Mm.
and more people will start to realize that, remote work is the wave of the future in terms of
Mhm.
finding the best talent wherever they are, whether they sit at home or in an office. And so I think the future of remote work is, we're going to see a lot more of it, and we're going to see a lot more of, companies starting to realize that, really, when you really want to find incredible people doing incredible work, does it really matter where they sit? Probably
Mm.
not. And wouldn't you rather want to just have them happy and enabled to do the work wherever they are versus making them make some commute to get there?
That's a great message, Craig. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you sharing your expertise.
Thank you. It was great talking to you about it.
And thank you to the audience for checking out another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. Please make sure to subscribe to the show and leave a review. It helps other people discover the show and helps us improve the show.